Am I the asshole for telling my mom and aunt they can't be at the hospital for the birth of our daughter over a cake recipe? My 40 male, very pregnant wife, 36 female, is one of the purest women I know. She doesn't have a mean or malicious bone in her body. My mother and my aunt are second-generation immigrants, as my grandmother and grandfather met in a concentration camp during World War II and were liberated and came to America. Because of this, they have developed a close bond. Both my maternal grandparents have long been deceased. Now, down to the story. My wife bakes on the side, and my family asks her to bake for them all the time. They pay her and they get their baked goods. My mom and aunt have asked my wife to recreate my grandma's carrot cake recipe on many occasions. My wife has done this down to perfect detail, and even my mom and aunt have said it might be better than my grandma's. Now, down to what caused me to blow up. My aunt was having a birthday party at her work and asked my wife to bake 24 cupcakes. After the party, my aunt said, "They were a hit and probably your best batch yet, but did you change something in the recipe? They were lighter and even more moist than the last couple of times you made them for us." My wife responded, quote, "Nope, followed the recipe on my fridge as I always do." Aunt, "No, I know my mom's cupcakes and you have made them perfectly before. This time, you had to have used a different recipe or ingredient. Did you use cake flour this time?" Wife, "No, this is even the same bag of flour I used the last time." Aunt, "No, I know you did something this time. I know my mom's recipe and this is not her recipe." I told my wife to drop it as it was going nowhere and was starting to irritate her. My mom texted us later, quote, "What did you do to the cupcakes? We want to know so that the next time we make them, we know what to do to make them taste just as good." My wife responded with everything she had said before. I told my mother to drop it, that she just read the recipe and went with it, as she always does. A few days later, I caught my wife staring at the recipe on the fridge, reading the recipe and asking out loud what she possibly could have done different this last go around. I could see she was upset, so I messaged my mom and aunt that they needed to apologize to her because they ultimately were calling my wife a liar. My mom, quote, "We didn't say those words. That's rude and upsetting. You would think we're calling her a liar. Apologize to us." During this back and forth, my wife had made the comment to me that she would be okay if they weren't at the hospital during the birth of our child. After a little bit of back and forth of me being what I feel gaslighted by them saying they are not calling my wife a liar, I said, quote, "Well, until you can apologize to her for calling her a liar, don't visit the hospital when she gives birth. We are not telling you the day we're going in for delivery until you do." Set a chain of events off in my family. My sisters agree with me, but my mom, aunt, and their friends have reached out saying I crossed a line. Even my wife has said that it's a little extreme. But when she's asked to talk to me about it, she says she does respect the decision. So Reddit, am I the asshole? I keep being told it's petty to have this much of a blow up over a cupcake recipe, but I feel that it's disrespectful to my wife. She says she's not that upset, but as I said above, I catch her reading the recipe on the fridge and talking to herself about it throughout the days. I don't want my mom and aunt's behavior to continue through to our daughter, and I fear that they may do something similar to her down the line. This is how they've always been.
If there is one superstition that I will die by, never buy a man a pair of shoes, because he will wear those shoes and walk out of your life. And I did not know this was a thing until it happened to me. And when it happened to me, all of my girlfriends were like, "Why would you buy him shoes? Like, did you not know that this was a thing?" So let me tell you what happened. A couple years ago for Valentine's Day, I was dating this guy and he always wore these like white Adidas sneakers that just like irked my soul. He would wear them all the time. And I was just like, you know what, for Valentine's Day, I'm gonna get him a pair of sneakers. I worked for Kith at the time, so I just like knew what sneakers were hot. I knew what the guys were wearing. I was like, I am gonna get him a nice pair of sneakers that he can wear instead of these Adidas that he just wore all the time. I remember reaching out to one of the Kith buyers and I'm like, okay, what should I get him? And she was like, all right, get him these Casablanca New Balance collab sneakers. They're hot, he'll love them, super cool. I'm like, great. I got him the sneakers. I wrap them up really nice, like make it really cute. I present them to him, like he's so happy, he loves them, he tries them on, things are good. Tell me why, not even a week after I gave this man these shoes, he breaks up with me. Like, and I knew we were breaking up because we typically would like see each other often and like always had plans, but there was like definitely distance and things were off. And I remember he called me one day, it was probably on like a Friday morning, and it was like gloomy outside, and he's like, hey, like, I think we should meet up and talk tonight. And I was just like, no, let's just do it right now on the phone. And so it was like, whatever, and things were done. And I'm like, okay, fine, like I'll move on with my life. We're not a fucking match. Cool. I remember on April 2nd, I threw a party for my podcast. It was one of the first events that I've ever thrown in New York City, and it was a really big deal for me. Everybody came out. It was so much fun. I was by the elevators and I was taking photos with the photographer, and one of my really good friends comes out of the elevator and I'm like, oh my God, like, hi. And I like go to hug her, and behind her is this fucking man that had just walked out of my life with the sneakers that I bought him, wearing the sneakers at my fucking party. And he goes, hey Kim, do you like my sneakers? And there is a photo of me when I saw him. I'm going to insert it right here. This is me when I saw him walk in behind my best friend, and I almost died. I was like, this has to be a sick joke. And I was so mad because I'm hosting an event with all of my friends. Like, I just want to have a good time. And now you throw this bullshit in the mix. And I'm like wondering if like he's still into me or there's like unfinished business and I can't like focus on just having a good time. And I remember being so pissed off, and I called him the next day and I just ripped him a new one. And I was like, do not ever fucking speak to me again. This is bullshit. You do not do that to someone. Anyway, long story short, do not buy a man fucking shoes, because he will walk out of your life in those shoes and then try to walk back into your life in those shoes on your big day and completely throw you off and have you fucking crying in the bathroom, a fucking Dumbo house on the floor. Like, is this my life? Anyway, the superstition is true. And if you did buy your man a pair of shoes for Valentine's Day, take them back, return them, get your money back, get a fucking store credit. I don't give a damn. Sell them on StockX. Like, do not give a man a pair of shoes.
Let's talk what it's like dating a student athlete. First of all, I acknowledge the fact that he wasn't a student athlete right when we met, and so I did have to like get used to that, and that in itself was a transitional period. I'm just applying a little bit of that Charlotte Tilbury water cream to my really dry areas before I apply my makeup. We started dating 3 years ago, and this is his second year playing that we've been together during. He was in the process of transferring right when COVID hit, so he actually pulled himself out since he didn't know what was really going to happen to eligibility during the COVID years. So it took him a second to get back into school. So we had our first year in La La Land. He wasn't in school, he was just working, and I was in school. Is this literally just a watermelon scented version of this? Because it feels just as tacky. Anywho, last year was rough. To see what a year in season looked like for us, it's like I had dated student athletes before, but never to this level where like, I don't know, I was busy with school and I was distracted with school, so it was like, okay, cool. But when I wasn't distracted with school anymore, I was like, you have a test, it's Saturday, like, can it be date night? There was a lot of maturing on my end to do, but also just like a lot of changes very fast for me to like adapt to. This year honestly feels like a breeze because last year I was getting used to the schedule, but also learning how my partner handles stress and time management and things like that, where last year I was confusing him being stressed out with school and the season with like, I was internalizing like, oh, it must be something with me because I've never seen this emotion, so I must have pissed him off, when in reality it was just him being stressed out. We've definitely learned how to communicate better about stress and feelings, and I let him know like, hey, when you do this, this makes me feel a certain way. And he's communicated better with me as far as like, hey, I gotta get this done. Don't take anything personal. This is just what's going on right now. Now, don't get me wrong. I want this man to play basketball, live out his dreams to every level that he can. But I cannot wait for him to be done with the school aspect of basketball and like student athlete. The school part, can't wait for the end. And he's ready to graduate too. We're just a few months away. He walks that stage in May, and I am so excited to cheer him on. There have been many opportunities that we've had to turn down because of his school and basketball schedule. So I can't wait for it to just be like one or the other, where I feel like he would literally have so much free time if he just worked a regular 9 to 5 or pursued basketball. But of course, with basketball, work, and school, his time is eaten up. I get to see this man pretty much if he's on the court and then on Sundays. I have got some pretty nasty comments about me going on a Vegas trip when I'm in a relationship and all this stuff for my birthday. But I did not choose that. I wanted to spend my birthday with my boyfriend, but he had an away game, and I would have followed him to his away game if I could have seen him. But when they're on away games, they cannot fraternize with anybody else. I can't see him after the game. I can literally just see him when he's on the court. This was actually the second year in a row that an away game has landed on my birthday. And it's all worth it because I know he's living out his dreams. And just to think about, like, when we first started dating and he was telling me, like, oh, well, I'm, like, trying to get on a team for college, da-da-da-da. I pulled myself out, so I'm going back to school to play on a team. It's, like, the fact that, like, we were talking about, like, oh, yeah, like, I want to play college basketball, and now he's playing college basketball. It's a beautiful thing to watch your partner, like, live out their dreams. I was over here talking to him like I'm trying to pursue social media and I'm pursuing social media. It's such a beautiful thing to grow with somebody, and it makes everything all worth it. Just trying to get at that there is sacrifice on both sides that has to happen, but there's also a lot of deep conversations about how you guys are going to communicate, what the plan is. Because I told him I don't want to walk behind you and you turn right and then I have to turn right because you turned right and I want to live life with you. I want to know, hey, when this intersection comes, we're both turning right because that's something we talked about and decided. And so it just became like, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about our plans together. And then it makes these little sacrifices so worth it. I used to always say, like, a man sets the bar in a relationship, and like I'm gonna look at him to maintain those first few months. Like, I'm not gonna have you win me over and then as soon as we're together you get comfortable and you don't do those things. So for having a year of him spoiling me with attention, affection, and time for the next year to be like, hey, I don't even have time to like FaceTime you to like watch a show or ask how your day is because I'm backed up in homework and I have early waits in the morning and all that stuff. It was a shocker for your girl, okay? And I was just like, I love this man. I love this man. Something else that has helped from last year to this year is last year I could only make certain games because I was working at the restaurant and nights it's poppin' and his games were at night. Now I have a free schedule. I've been able to show up to pretty much every single game.
This is for my single girls who are waiting for God to send their husband. Let me tell y'all what I just had to do today. But I've been meaning to do it, but today was the day. I know some of us have that one person or maybe two or maybe a couple, like stragglers, like you really don't want to be with them. Like they fit certain criteria, but you just know it's just something that this is not the person God wants you to marry, but you haven't called it quits. Like you probably don't talk on the phone with them every day, but you have conversations with them. Like you entertain the situation from time and time again. If you're one of those girls that have something like that, let me tell you this, cut it out. Because you don't need no distractions from keeping you from your husband finding you, like period. Being very intentional and focusing more on yourself and what God needs you to do in the season of singleness. So let me tell you what I had to do today. I literally sent out a message. And mind you, I was thinking about sending a message, but let me tell you how God put it on my mind to send out the message, but I didn't. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm going to do it later on. The person ended up calling me. So I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So the first thing the person said on the phone, oh, you don't miss me? I'm like, I don't. See, one thing about it, men love to chase because I don't even show this person no kind of interest. So I replied, you are not my husband. Quick as day. Like, that's what the Lord was telling me to say. Like, that's what the conversation was going to be about anyway. You're not my husband. I don't want to talk to any man that is not my husband. Like, I'm talking about building a bond, building a relationship with someone that is not my husband. And you be like, well, how do you get to know that person if you don't listen? Just like men know, once you know what you want, there's the not even just red flags, but being equally yoked, because you can be with a believer and still be unequally yoked. Like, it's clear as day. We are grown. We need to stop making excuses out of loneliness and desperation and listening to the world. Period. So tell me why he got so mad. He was like, what do you mean? Oh, so we starting to talk. Why did it get into like a big argument? But I wasn't arguing. That's one thing I ain't gonna do because for what? So he says, oh, so you mean to tell me that we have to get married right away? Like, I want you to be my girl. I said, I've been enough people's girls. Like, what is your intentions? I'm gonna be your girl, and then what? Like, I'm just saying, like, I know for a fact this person does not want marriage. I'm gonna just say that to y'all right now. I know that this person doesn't want marriage. This person wants, I don't even know, but I know marriage ain't one of them. And I know marriage is something I want. And most importantly, I am someone who is waiting for marriage. And I know you don't respect that. So that's ding, ding, ding. Red flag number 2. So why would I continue to entertain something that I know 100% is not for me? And that's how we get into these situationships, because we keep entertaining things that we see the red flags, that we see that we're not equally yoked, but we still continue, out of boredom, or, he cool and this and that. And you make excuses, and then boom, you start to catch feelings for this person. And now y'all in the situationship. No. And I don't want anything hindering my husband from finding me. I don't want to have my feelings caught up with anybody else but my husband and myself. Like I just don't have time. And God has so much more for me to do before that time comes. Like, I just got to be focused, and I don't need nobody preying on me. The counterfeit always preys on the person, on you. Like, don't think the counterfeit ain't gonna come before the real thing.
Yesterday, me and my husband hosted the Super Bowl for our family, and we discussed, let's do the Super Bowl at my house or my sister's house. It's always just one of our houses. And I was like, well, when we come to my house, she has this big, 150-pound dog, Mac, who I love, but he sheds. I'm like, okay, when you come to my house, Mac can't come over. It's not like the little Yorkies, bring the Yorkies. They're fluffy and small and they don't shed. Bring the Yorkies, but leave Mac at home. She's like, I don't want to leave Mac at home. I'm like, fine, then we'll go to your house. So yesterday, my husband gets back from Vegas. He had been traveling in Vegas from Thursday until Sunday. He got back early Sunday morning. He's like, I'm really tired. I don't really want to go to your sister's house. Can we just do it at our house? I'm like, yeah, obviously, understandable. You're tired from traveling. Let me tell my family. I'm sure they'll have no problem. Wrong. My sister's like, you're hijacking the day. I went through all the plans to have everyone over. I'm like, did you hire a caterer? No, she didn't hire a caterer. Did you buy food? No, she didn't buy any food. So you didn't do any preparation before we're coming over. You didn't spend money on food. You didn't do any food shopping. Not like she made a 7-layer dip that she has to bring over. She didn't do anything. I'm like, why is it really a problem for you to come over? So I say to her, if you don't want to come over and, it doesn't work for you, then just don't come over. She's bitching, complaining, the dog. She's like, I don't want to leave my dog home alone. I'm like, you are out of the house every single day. Do you bring your dog to Barry's with you? Do you bring the dog to Neiman Marcus with you? No, you leave your dog home alone. So eventually, she decides, after whining, temper tantrum, the whole thing, she decides that, fine, she'll come over. I go to Whole Foods with my husband. We get wings. We get mac and cheese with short rib. I made a homemade chili. He made grilled shrimp. We had a feast, spent hundreds of dollars. It was a feast. She comes over and she is just so rude, so nasty, so bitchy. I said, we can't eat the wings upstairs. I just got a brand new white sofa. I said, no, we can't eat our wings upstairs. It's a vertical house, so it's multi-layer, and the living room's upstairs. And I said, if you want to eat your food, eat downstairs. And then when you're done eating, you can go upstairs and watch the game. This house is so done with all of its stupid rules. My dog can't be here. I'm like, shut the fuck up. And all day long, she wouldn't stop complaining about what an inconvenience it was for her that she had to come to my house and not spend any money on food and not have to cook and not have to clean. She's so inconvenienced by the drive to my house and that she couldn't bring her dog that she just could not stop being a bitch. And at the end of the night, when she leaves, she doesn't say thank you. She says, I'm taking your wine. Bye. And leaves with our last bottle of wine. We're all looking at each other, my mom and my husband and my mom's boyfriend. We're like, she just took our wine. She didn't even help clean. She even offered help clean. She just took our last bottle of fucking wine. So that is the last time I will ever host and invite my sister over. because she doesn't like my rules. She doesn't like that I cook for her. She doesn't like that I clean up after her. She just didn't want to have to get in her car and drive to my house and follow my rules in my house. Honestly, like, I should have just been like, fucking leave, bitch, there's the door. She still has not apologized. She's probably gonna see this TikTok too. Lexi, I'm waiting for your apology.
I broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years because she wanted to remain a virgin. Now she wants to get back together, but she told me that she slept with someone else while we were broken up. How should I proceed? I, 23 male, met my ex, 21 female, 3 years ago. We live on campus at uni at different halls of residence. After a few months, we got together and for the most part had a very happy relationship. There was always one issue though. My ex grew up in a very religious home. Her father is a pastor. She's been open with her family that she does not share their faith. They weren't happy about it, but accepted that she has her own choices to make. Nevertheless, I think that some of the religious upbringing was still in her mind. I grew up in a different religion but was never serious about it, and I'm no longer religious. Our relationship was pretty normal, except that she told me very early on that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until she was married. It wasn't for religious reasons. As I mentioned, she isn't religious. But she was very focused on not disappointing her dad. We did other sexual things, just not intercourse. I never had much luck with girls growing up, and going into a relationship, I was a virgin. And I still am, at least if you classify being a virgin as never having had intercourse. Anyway, I was becoming more resentful of the fact that everyone I knew was having normal sexual relationships and we weren't. I couldn't understand why she didn't want to have a full sexual relationship, though of course I never pressured her about it. I felt that while at uni and pretty broke, getting married was something for the future. Last year, I was in my last year of uni and she was working in her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she finished uni despite being younger than me. She was talking a lot about all these successful guys she met at work, which did make me feel lesser as I was still a broke college student. Coupled with her still not wanting a full sexual relationship, it did make me more resentful. We had some arguments about it, and after a while, I felt like I should end the relationship as we wanted different things and our lives were on different paths. It was awful. She was crying a lot and I felt terrible afterwards. Anyway, it's been nearly 6 months since we broke up. We haven't been in touch at all for most of that time. I have not been involved with anyone else in that time, as I 100% focus on finishing my degree. I finally finished at uni and I'm about to start my first professional job. She recently got in touch again and asked to meet up. I was hesitant, but decided that we had so much good history that I should hear her out. She told me that she's been missing me terribly these past 6 months, that she thinks she wants to get back together and is open to having a sexual relationship now. I asked her why now, what changed, and she looked uncomfortable. After a little prying, she said she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up, which of course was fine as she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Anyway, she said that he persisted her until she started having sex with him. She ended it with him recently. She was clear that it was consensual, but that the guy was very persistent with pursuing a sexual relationship with her. I was gutted. I couldn't understand why she made me wait all those years, but was fine doing it with some new guy that she'd only been seeing in a short time. I asked if the reason she was open to having a sexual relationship now is because she wasn't a virgin anymore. She said yes. I asked her to give me some space to process all of this. I'm conflicted and would love some advice on this. I've missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her, but at the same time it feels like I was strung along for years. It's hard to put my finger on why I don't want to take her back. Everything logically makes sense for us to get back together. I'd even get to finally have a sexual relationship with her, but I feel awful about this whole thing and don't want to ignore those feelings.
So some of you may have seen that I got eliminated from The Bachelor last night. And honestly, it was a lot more emotional than I thought it was going to be. There truly is something special about getting dumped on national TV. But honestly, above all else, I wanted to talk about my silence on the show. I know there were a lot of funny memes talking about how all the drama is about Medina, but there's not a ton of Medina actually talking. I'll tell you one thing I love to abide by, and that is the idea that sometimes no response is the best response. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say it was kind of sucky to not be able to show my story. And most importantly, to not be able to truly get to know Joey and for Joey to truly get to know me. And as corny as it sounds, I am truly a believer that everything happens for a reason. I'm not a huge arguer, if that's even a word, and that's because I'm a firm believer that you can't really change someone's viewpoint. You can really only monitor your response to it. And unfortunately, that doesn't make for good TV. And I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of weird to hear my name thrown around so much, but me to barely be talking. And parts of me regret it, but for the most part I don't, because when I was there, I tried my best to ask myself, what would I do in the real world? But again, that doesn't really make for good TV. And I'd be lying if I said I had a fantastic time. For the most part, I was actually pretty stressed the entire time I was there. And it was a lot to hold in, and also not to react to. So honestly, I'm pretty proud of the way I kept myself composed. You know what they say, how you respond to anything is how you respond to everything. And when it came to the pressures of being 31 and being on the show, I think something a lot of people don't realize is when you go on the show, you give up dating and finding a potential person for a long time in hopes that it's going to work out with this individual. And so I think last night was extra emotional for me because it was finally this release and this realization that I can finally date again, which was also exciting but also very daunting. And those of you who watched saw me talk about how beautiful it was to watch other people fall, and I really meant it. And it makes me so sad at the same time because where the heck my man at? If you're watching, it's me. Hi, I'm here. But yeah, of course, I wish the cards were different for me, but they weren't. And so I'm excited, but also very nervous to get back on the wagon, the cart. What's the saying? I'm just excited to get back out there, but also so nervous. So although being on the show was hard for me, I definitely learned some lessons. Unfortunately, a lot of the people I've dated have been emotionally unavailable and convinced me that I was asking for too much. So I watered myself down for many years. So going on the show, I realized that I'm not asking for too much. And even if I am, then I'm not for you.
Today I had the most embarrassing moment at school and I'm still recovering from it. I went to the wrong class. Let me tell you about it. So my school is AB schedule, which means like you have class, well, you have like a specific class every other day instead of every single day, but the classes are just longer. And I've never been to a school like this before, and so I'm still kind of getting used to it this semester. We just had like a weird break and everything, and so the schedule was like kind of flip-flopped. I don't really have any friends at school, so it's not like I would recognize anybody, but I walk into my class this morning and everyone's walking in, and I'm a little bit confused because my seat that I usually sit in, like, someone's in it, and I'm like, well, that's fine, like, I can just sit at another seat. So I just sit down at a different seat, and my teacher comes in, you know, the morning announcements go on, everyone says the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're just, like, going about our day. Everyone's logging into their computers, we're getting started on our work. By the way, I just got this Glossier Cloud Paint in Dawn, and I am obsessed with this color. It's, like, the most perfect orange. Y'all know I love orange blush. Hello, so this is amazing. Anyway, so my teacher starts taking attendance, taking roll call, and everyone's saying here, 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 and going down the line, and there's a lot of names being called, and I'm like, first of all, my class isn't this big. There's a lot of kids here, and second of all, my name hasn't been called yet, and my last name isn't too far down the list, you know? Oh my god, this blush is so pigmented. So my teacher finishes roll call, and then she looks at me, and she says, Opal, did you transfer into this class? I'm sorry, what? What the hell? So she goes, this is web design. Keep in mind I take Photoshop. Oh my god. So I turn and I'm like, oh my god, am I in the wrong class? And she's like, yeah, you're in the wrong class. And like my heart is like beating so fast. It's like, I just felt like a spotlight was put on me because like everyone whips their head around and is like looking at me because I have to stand up. And she's like, would you like a note? The funny thing is, I only take one class at this school. I literally only take one class, and so I didn't even need a note. I didn't need to be excused from any other class. I didn't need a note, but I was like, yes, note, please, because like my brain was just panicking, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was just going with it. So I literally stood up to grab this note, and I was like, guess I'm in the wrong class. Hey, guys.
Am I in the wrong for dropping off my kids with my in-laws and saying that they're not my problem anymore? My wife passed away just before last Thanksgiving. It came out of nowhere and I'm somewhat broken. To make it worse, my stepkids have decided that since I'm not their father, they don't have to obey me anymore. They're teens and have never been my biggest fans. They love their dad and I was only ever their mom's husband. However, when Dina was alive, they treated her home well and with respect. After she died, they became a-holes. Yes, I know their mom died. It sucks, but that was my wife and the mother of my children. I'm also having a tough time dealing. Their paternal grandparents are also shitting on me for not being more understanding of all they're going through. I've tried. I've offered them counseling. I have given them space. I have been there for them. I'm at my wit's end. The last straw was when we were over there for supper last week. I said it was time to go so I could get the littles to bed. My stepkids said that they didn't want to go and that I should leave them and come back for them. It's a 2-hour drive. I said no. Their grandparents said I was being too hard on them and that I should let them stay. I'm having a hard time with 2 small children, the loss of my wife, and 2 teen a-holes without having my in-laws pile on my life to make it more difficult. So I did. I also packed up their stuff. Instead of coming back for them, I dropped off all of their stuff at their grandparents' house. I have 2 kids under 5 to take care of. I don't really have time to baby 2 teens that are just making my life harder. My house is clean for the first time in weeks. My kids are sleeping through the night. My stepkids are living with their uncle in the same city as me so they can finish high school with their friends. Everyone on their dad's side is against me. I really don't care. I was told by both of them and their father that I am not to try and parent them, so I'm not. I actually don't have any parental rights over them. Their dad wasn't even okay with me being a contact for them at school, so his parents bear the contact. My wife left behind a small life insurance policy which I'll divide between the 4 kids, but I was the breadwinner in my house. I bought pretty much everything for their last 8 years, so now it's all mine. My in-laws are calling me an a-hole for abandoning the kids, but I have 2 kids that need me more. The older 2 have a dad as well as grandparents to help them. My kids do too, I guess, but they also have me, and I want them to have a peaceful home.